Thank you very much. Let's see if this works now. Here we go. 19. That's the average age on the African continent. The next youngest continents are Asia and Latin America, with anywhere between 31 to 34, depending on who does the statistic. Europe is over 40. And population growth is obviously also exponential there, which means by 2015, 1/3 of the world's young population will be in Africa, on the African continent. And here's where the opportunity lies. The digital economy growth is also exponential, and this has a number of reasons. One is the young population. Two is a mindset of leapfrogging technology, where there's no certain set ways of doing things. You adapt new tech quicker, and through that can leapfrog and become more efficient if you do it the right way. So this is where we see the massive opportunity, and where it also translates into our world of startups and investments, where because there has been an inflow also of capital, when there's great projects, the unicorns grow bigger and become unicorns much faster than in the rest of the world. So in Africa, the latest 3 unicorns have been created within 3 years of founding. Typically, that's anywhere between 5 and 10 years. So very fast growth, a lot of opportunity there, and a very young population. If you want to dive deeper into some of the statistics on the continent, make sure you download that report. We issue a report on the African blockchain environment in particular, where we both look into venture capital trends on a global basis and as it relates to the continent, but then also regulation-specific considerations for the continent. Just a few takeaways from that report. Last year, the continent was the only one where broadly, not just in blockchain, venture funding into tech companies was up. No other continent. And in our space, in blockchain and Web3, up significantly. And 500 or $500 million may not sound much in a global context, but obviously for an economy such as the African continent, it's a massive number, and it's a great opportunity that we see there. Now, in terms of regulation, there's a lot of uncertainty. There's some countries where it's very certain, either in one way or another, right? South Africa is very certain. Nigeria, for example, is also very certain, but in a negative way. South Africa in a positive way. We personally believe that some of the implicit bans are also still uncertain, but also, look at that report for the individual countries and we keep monitoring that for you for the different regions. Now, what are the top priorities for the continent as a whole? Listed here, and we believe that our technology that we all deal with, Web3 and blockchain and digital assets, can help with a lot of these topics and priorities for the continent. And I just want to make the example of a few projects that build real-world solutions that also make either the world or the region a better place. In Nigeria, 65% of all legal cases are due to real estate. In fact, I think 90 or 95% of land is not properly registered. It's so bad that, in the US, where people have their for sale sign outside on their yard, in Nigeria, there's a lot of people that have not for sale on their front porch. So, there's no imposters trying to sell a house that they don't even own. House Africa is solving this. Very simplistic, if you will. They're moving the land registration onto the blockchain and doing it together with some of the regions, some of the states, also in a formal mandate. So this is a classic leapfrogging technology, right? I mean, it already exists in Sweden. There, it's less driven by trust or lack thereof, but more efficiency. And here, it's driven by this trust issue, but it will clearly then, once implemented, also bring a more efficient system of transferring ownership on land rights. The big one, I think many people are aware of, if you have a foreign worker and they want to send money home, Western Union is taking an arm and a leg, 14 or 15%, and it takes a few days, and then maybe the whatever bad uncle picks it up because he or she knows the kiosk and they're using the money for the wrong way. Mazuma is a project from Ghana that comes from mobile money and is using crypto for immediate transfer to the right person at a fraction of the cost. So pretty simplistic, and you have this in most countries that allow for digital asset transfer. Here's a project from Kenya that basically seeks to provide small business owners the same toolkit that large companies have in terms of customer retention, rebate programs, so essentially using and coupons and customer rebate programs. This is a massive thing in Africa. They are NFTing it for better transfer, for better customer intelligence, and basically giving small business owners the same tools as large companies. Project from Kenya. Education obviously is a big thing and a massive opportunity. Is a project out of Cape Town that trains coders and then also becomes kind of an HR brokerage for companies to onboard these coders. So they're doing the training as well as the job placement at the back end. This is actually a project we not just invested through the fund, but also from our equity. We took a strategic stake because we think it's so important, obviously, to have, sufficient tech in the region, but also a massive opportunity for tech to be an export item potentially also for the continent. And I think that's the last example, human aid and human crisis. Today, if you're transferring money in a human aid situation, 45% of the value on average is lost. And it's lost through 3 different ways. One is crazy FX fluctuations. So wherever there's a massive crisis region, you have massive foreign exchange fluctuations. I already mentioned the Western Union or other folks, not to just talk about them, that have high transfer fees. And lastly, it's fraud and middlemen taking a cut in one way or another. KoalaPay, a startup from our last acceleration batch, is dealing with all that, again, instant and at a fraction of the cost. Here we go. So, these are the. So those are just a few examples from our portfolio, and what we've invested in. Broadly, we feel that this tech. So I'm actually funnily seeing something else on this screen and not the disclaimer. We can either turn that around or I can tell you what I'm seeing. So essentially, what I'm seeing is there's 4 broad verticals on the continent that we invest in and where we believe this technology can help. One is infrastructure, right? So smart cities, digital identity, supply chain. The other one is fintech and DeFi, banking the unbanked as the obvious solution. The next one, I didn't have an example yet, we're still looking for assets, is healthcare. Counterfeit is a massive topic there, but also controlling the supply chain. And the last one is the fun one, which is gaming and entertainment. Clearly there also mass adoption. We invest in all of these startups that I mentioned before. We actually invest globally. And just to say, we are venture capitalists and we want to invest in startups to make money, right? But if we find startups that have a social impact, we obviously love that too, but we're not specifically searching for it. But as an example of the 14 investments we've done on the African continent, 80% of those, in one way or another, work towards a UN Sustainable Development Goal. Globally, we invested in 58 startups, and just so you get a sense, the way we invest is very early stage into startups, either through our own accelerator program, where we invite the startups to come to us to Zug. We work with them for 10 weeks, they get money and they get 10-week training with our whole ecosystem, or in those that are a bit further, we invest directly in early stage startups. We not just provide money to these startups, but we also have what we call operational business, which is called CV Labs, where we have co-working. We organize our own events. The flagship event is the CV Summit, which is happening early October in Zug for 2 days, for those who are interested. We work kind of building bridges between the startup and the corporate universe with the likes of Google, Citi, Bank, and others. We do the research, such as the African report, and we run our own accelerator, and also working with protocols and third-party to provide this accelerator as a service, where we can help other parties run or train their startups and get them ready for the next steps. So what's the focus for us? I think there's 3 things. See, when I'm asking for money, the slide goes away again. So we're always on the lookout for great startups, number 1. In order to invest in these startups, our kind of capital is not endless, so we're raising funds. We're actually now raising a dedicated Africa Web3 blockchain fund, and happy to talk to interested investors about that, as well as obviously our global fund. And we connect ecosystems, so if any of these topics is at your heart, come and talk to us. Maybe quickly, by way of introduction, we have Ulrike here, who is our representative in Germany, and Jannis, who runs the accelerator business, and myself, I look after the investment side of things. I do this typically for those that are novices to our space and go like, oh, everything is happening so fast, and what's with AI and blockchain and whatnot. And I say, hey, after a presentation, if you feel everything is happening so fast right now, it's true. It has never been as fast as it is today, but the one promise I make, and also to this room, it will never be as slow ever again, right? So if you're in industry and you feel like, I don't know, is it going through? Is it happening? Let's observe first. My big recommendation is, come and join us, because otherwise you may get left behind. Thank you very much.